welcome to Mission in 5, the podcast, where we ask 5 simple questions to pastors, ministry leaders, church members, and anyone else we can convince into coming on this podcast to learn more about who they are as people and where they see God moving in their community. This is episode number 1, our very first inaugural episode. I'm your host, Greg Mamula. Today we're speaking with Caleb Lind, the pastor of First Baptist Church of Norfolk. How you doing, Caleb?
Hey, I'm doing great, Greg. Thanks so much for having me.
So let's go ahead and dive in. We have 5 simple questions that we like to ask all of our guests. And so the first question is, who are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, that's a great question. It can be a hard question to answer succinctly, but my name is Caleb, and I'm a 33-year-old pastor in Norfolk, Nebraska. And so originally a Kansas boy, but moved up here a little over 2 years ago to become the pastor of the First Baptist Church here. And I'm a husband. I've been married for almost 12 years to a wonderful woman named Kayla. Met her in college. And I'm also a father. I have 2 sons, Hudson, who's almost 5, and Warner, who's almost 2. We've got some birthdays coming up, and so those are some of the hats that I wear. Besides being pastor, I'm a person who loves to be active. I love people, and so Norfolk's a great community because it's close knit. It's not too small, not too big, but also provides a lot of opportunities for my family to be active and to do things together. And so I guess that would be a little I am.
All right, that sounds great. So question number 2 then. How did you get here? How did you become pastor of First Baptist Church of Norfolk?
Yeah, well, it's a great question. Well, I owe a little bit of that to you, Greg, for sure. I've been serving as a pastor for a number of years, but my previous church, I was an associate pastor. I always thought I was going to be in youth ministry. That was the main focus of my previous position. But I was at that church. He was outside of Kansas City, serving there for 5 years. God just kind of used different experiences and circumstances that I went through there, and opportunities that I had to be a part of various ministries within the church that I was in. And God kind of used all those things to turn and change my heart a little bit, to be focused a little bit more on the ministry within the wider church, not just solely focused on youth and students. And so, during that process, I was trying to figure out what was next ministry-wise. I saw a post that you put on our seminary Facebook alumni group, and about churches in Nebraska that had open positions. And so it's kind of funny because since I was a part of an American Baptist church, my profile and those kinds of things, that's not how I found out about the opportunity in Norfolk, but it was through that post that you put, Greg, on the alumni Facebook group. So you get some credit for that, at least a little bit. And then from there, you and I had yeah.
Well, let's do a shameless plug real quick. What seminary is that?
That would be George W. Truett Theological Seminary down at Baylor University. So, it's so funny because we didn't go there at the same time when we didn't know each other from there, but the Facebook group is one of those things that helped connect us. So that was a pretty cool thing, Greg.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, so it was through that post that you put that I got in contact with the American Baptist Churches of Nebraska, and from there kind of jumped into the interview process. They were pretty far into the process, but they threw my name into the hat, and we kind of allowed the Lord to lead from there. So, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say, as my wife and I were trying to process what was next ministry-wise. So much of what we were thinking about was not just what's the right church, but what's the right community for our family. And there were just some desires that God had put on our hearts for what we felt like was the right next thing for us. And so it was fascinating. We thought that would be more inner city. We were feeling kind of a draw to a little bit more diversity, to being in a place where we're a little bit less insulated to those who are hurting and the least of these, and so we kind of pictured that as being some inner city somewhere. But it was just amazing that as we got to know the church here in Norfolk and the community, that all of those here in this mid-sized community in northeast Nebraska. So God certainly, he made sure that all of those things we felt a call to were present here in this church. And so that's a roundabout way of how we ended up here in Norfolk.
All right, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. Let's move on to question number 3.
Yeah.
What moves you? What are some of those things that get you all passionate, and what are maybe some hobbies or interests you may have?
Music moves me, Greg. No. Well, it does. That's right. My wife would be embarrassed to a lot of people know my dance moves that I do at home. I enjoy that, but that's usually privately. But no, what moves me? That's a really good question. I feel like, it's certainly been a little bit different depending on where I've been in my life, what season of my life. But I feel like if I were to try to put two things or two answers up to that question, I would say one of the things that is really on my heart right now that God uses to move me is to see is Christ working together. And I've grown denominational past as I thought it. I kind of call myself faith like a mutt because I'm part of a whole bunch of different denominations in my upbringing. And so I love to see different churches come together and work together in a way that nobody's competing. That we're realizing, hey, we're all in this together and we're working towards the same thing. And so that's one of those things that has always been on my heart. But it's like since I've been here in Norfolk that God has just really put a burden on my heart in order to see the local church cooperation and see local churches working together.
Yeah, that's really good. There's probably a huge need for us right now in our country is for our churches to work together locally and across the nation. So that's a great calling. What else you got?
Absolutely, yeah. And the other thing that kind of is that moves me is just as we today being the day after Valentine's Day, but also as the listeners know about the shooting that happened in Florida. There's just been in my mind, my heart, kind of on my spiritual radar the last couple of years. It's just the idea of our call as a church to be a peacemaker, and we're just surrounded by violence in so many different ways, clearly in that shooting, but also in a world that's just fraught with regional conflicts and civil wars, and even just in the media, the mainstream media, the violence that is portrayed just in entertainment and the entertainment industry and things like that. Greg, I don't know that I could say it moves me because I don't know that there's been a lot of movement as far as action in my life, but in my heart, there's just this. I just feel like this desire that God has just really placed there to think more deeply, to learn more, to really begin to explore what it looks like for the church to take that call seriously, to be peacemakers in the world, and what that looks like in the local church context, and what that looks like for me as a pastor. I don't have answers, so that's kind of an exploration I'm on, and I feel like that's one of those things that moves me. And especially just in the context in which we live. So I'm hopeful that the Lord will move me more to action than He's moved me in my heart right now. But I know that will be a work in progress. So those are the two of the things that I would say move me.
Yeah, it's a difficult week to be sure, as we once again experienced a mass shooting, and it almost seems to be commonplace in our culture, tragically enough, that people are able to experience those things and then so quickly move on to whatever's next because it's just such a part of our culture. And I know many of my friends are also struggling with this and wanting to know how to respond and how to respond positively and be peacemakers, and knowing how to connect their church to that peacemaking process and be part of their faith journey. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. Question number 4 then is what's happening at First Baptist Church in Norfolk? What's some ministries that you're involved in that community and in your church that you'd like to share with the rest of us?
Yeah, no, that's great. There's a lot happening here. I don't use the word small because I know sometimes, church size is certainly relative, but we're I guess, a medium-sized congregation, and we have a good number of things going on. I think a few of the things that I would highlight, we've got a Wednesday night ministry that kind of reaches deeply into our community to reach out to children and youth, and that's from pre-K all the way up through 12th grade, and I would say that's probably one of the most important things that we're doing currently as a church. And the main reason I feel that way is because about 90% of the students that are part of this ministry, we have about between 40 and 50 pre-K through sixth graders, and probably close to 20 or 25 junior and senior hires that are coming and are around engaged in these different ministries. So about 90% of them have no affiliation with our congregation outside of this Wednesday night ministry, and they have no other affiliation with any other church at all. And so I kind of refer to these kids as community kids because they come from all corners of the community. Most from lower socioeconomic status households, most from diverse Norfolk isn't, but in our little corner of this and in our Wednesday night ministry, it is. And it's really diverse ethnically and racially, and so it's just a really unique ministry opportunity for us. Because we don't know parents or grandparents or aunts and uncles who they live with, and so trying to reach into their families and connect with those kids and to show them the love of Jesus. So in that ministry, I would say is probably the most important thing that we're currently doing right now as a family.
So let me understand this. Yeah, let me just run this back a little bit with you. You've got 60 kids, basically, between K through 12, 60 to 65 students, who come to your church on Wednesday nights on a regular basis, and you provide some sort of ministry opportunities for them to be engaged with children's ministries and youth ministries. Is there meals involved? Are there activities? Like, what's it look like on a Wednesday night with these kids?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Greg. So actually this year, we are doing a meal this year, and that's been a new thing that started this year. One of the things we've experienced in the last couple of years is as the kids were coming, probably 80 to 90% of them hadn't had dinner. And this is at 6:30 at night, 6:30 to 8, and so as being it's hard for them to really engage super well, and as they were wiggling around and hungry, and so we had a lady who just has a huge heart for ministry and for the Lord, and she's stepped up and got some other volunteers to begin the night with a meal, which has been a huge blessing because it's free to the kids, and it's super cheap for adults, and so we encourage our adult leaders to come so they can share some time over the table over dinner with the students that they're ministering to after. So what we currently do in a Awana program, for those people who are familiar with that, we kind of change it to our context because a lot of the things that the traditional Awana program does don't work for us. But we kind of take what fits us and utilize that, and we use that for the pre-K through sixth graders, and then some volunteers and I kind of lead together the Wednesday night youth ministry for the junior and senior hires. So it's been a really neat thing. It's a challenge, Greg. I'm not going to lie. It challenges our traditional church kind of model of how we minister to families and to kids because we don't know mom or dad or what's going on at home, and it makes it difficult in many ways, but we know that it's worth it, and we're just going to continue to see how we can do it better and better.
Wow, that sounds really great. I'm glad you're doing that, and that your church is stepping up and participating in really powerful ways, and especially this person who's providing the meals. This is great.
It's been.
You said you had a couple of ideas here. Yeah, well, you said you had a couple of ministry ideas. What else is going on?
Well, yeah. So I'm trying to think. As far as just church-wise goes, we just kind of finished revising and editing our Constitution, which kind of seems like, oh well, what's the big deal with that? In certain churches, it's not a big deal. But for us, one of the things that we tried to do, we just kind of tried to bring it a little bit more into the 21st century and some of its language. We didn't change a whole lot of things as far as church governance and structure goes. But one of the things I'm most excited about that we did, Craig, is we created an opportunity to create what we're calling ministry teams. And I don't know about you, but as a millennial myself, when I think about serving on a committee, that's something that doesn't light my fire. That does not move me. But when I think about being a part of a team, I know some of it's just semantics, but when I think about being a part of a team, that's something that gets me excited, because even just in that word, there's a connotation of togetherness, of community, of kind of having shared goals, and so we created this opportunity to create ministry teams that form around either a specific ministry need or a specific ministry event, and so we've got kind of two teams that have kicked it off, what we're calling a missions and outreach team that will focus on local and global missions and engaging our church family in both areas. And then the other team is what we're calling a children's and family ministry team. We had an old Christian Ed board is what it was called, and it was and so we kind of tightened that down a little bit to this children's and family ministry team that focuses really narrowly on how we minister to kids, but also how we help partner with families, because we feel like we can't outsource the spiritual formation of kids to them, because we feel like the most important role model and spiritual influence of students are their own parents or whoever's at home. So we want to try to do what we can to partner with parents and families in order so that spiritual formation and education is going on in the home. We can do it here, 52 Sundays a year or 35 Wednesday nights a year, whatever it is. But if it's not being reinforced well at home, then it makes the challenge of passing on that faith a little bit more challenging, we feel like. So those ministry teams, that's something else that's going on here that we're excited about, that we just passed that Constitution this past Sunday, but we've been working in that direction for about the last 6 months.
All right, so it sounds like there's a lot of transition going on at First Baptist Norfolk, which leads us to our final question, number 5. What is next? So what's next with you, maybe personally, maybe professionally? What's next at First Baptist Norfolk? What are some, what's in the near future for you guys?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Greg. Again, I could answer in a variety of ways. I think when I think about what's next for First Baptist Norfolk and for our community, it ties back into what I talked about a little bit about what moves me, seeing churches work together. Our church was a part of the first annual event which we called To Norfolk with Love. And it was an event, we got 12 churches in the community to participate, and it was a one-day event for 3 hours where we gathered Christians from across the city to do different service projects around our community. Things that people who were a little bit older and were in wheelchairs, projects they could do that were to projects where people were on scaffolding, painting, and doing different things like that. And so we had over 12 churches represented, close to 100 volunteers for this first annual event that we did last year. And so one of the things that I think is next is we're planning 2018's event, and we have a goal of 20 churches and 200 volunteers. And so for us, it's something that our church family has done a great job, because they were the leaders of it last year and did a lot of work in making it happen. But this year we had a leadership team that we put together with representatives from 3 different churches, and I think that's going to be we just have a vision for that to be really impactful for our community, not only practically and doing some very practical things to serve organizations and individuals in our community, but also spiritually connecting believers from across different denominational lines and helping us to share the love of Christ by serving our community and by doing it in a way that, in a unified way, doing that together. So I'm just really excited for what that will mean for our church and for the kingdom of God here in Norfolk, but also for the city as the elected officials and the school systems and as people there watch what the church can do when we work together. So I'm really excited for that, Greg. And so thing that I think is next and that I'm excited about personally, that's a great question. one of the things is I just feel like I'm learning how to be a pastor. I didn't take all the classes in seminary about how to marry and bury and do all those things because I thought I was going to be a youth pastor forever. So I watched YouTube videos on how to baptize people. I mean, I'd seen it before, but I was like, well, where do I put my hand? Where do I do this? Where do I do that? So as I've moved into this role of a pastor of a church, I've kind of had to learn a lot of different things on the fly. It feels like, and a part of that. So a part of that for me is just leadership in general, and how I can shepherd and lead this church family well. I'm the only staff besides our custodian and our secretary, and so how do I lead this group of people well and encourage people and empower people to lead and to do different things. And so I didn't take a leadership class in undergrad or things that I'm really excited about is doing some leadership development with myself and figuring out how God has as a leader and how I can take those gifts and use them to lead this church family well. And so I've been listening to some different podcasts, and I just actually UPS guy showed up at my house as I was coming back to the building for lunch, and said I bought leadership about it either. So I'm just excited to grow in that way and to see where God leads as far as leadership goes. So that's one of the things that's next for me, I feel like.
All right. Well, it sounds like you got a lot.
Well, it is, and it's great, and as long as I can keep a healthy balance with work and family and all those other things, I'm excited to be where I'm at, and this church family has just been awesome. They're so great, and they've been so supportive of me and want me to not take too much on my plate. But no, it's been good. I feel like I'm learning and I'm glad to be able to do what I do.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing your heart with us. Thank you for answering our 5 simple questions. It's been good to talk to you, Caleb, First Baptist Church pastor, Caleb Lind. And so for all of our listeners out there who maybe want to know a little bit more about maybe some of these children's ministries that you're doing, about how to restructure their churches into teams, maybe how to partner with other congregations in their town to do citywide ministries, or even maybe about how you're going about personal development and learning new things and focusing on leadership. If they wanted to talk to you about any of those things and get a hold of you, how might they do that?
Yeah, great question. So best way to reach me is probably my email. That's just my first name, Caleb, C-A-L-E-B, my last name, Lind, L-I-N-D, and that's outlook.com.
All right, so caleb.lind@outlook.com. Well, thanks so much for your time, Caleb. Thanks for answering our questions, and I hope you have a great day.
All right, you too, Greg. Thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks for listening to this very first episode of Mission in 5, the podcast. Keep checking in, and we're going to be interviewing more and more guests each week, and you'll get to learn about their ministry and who they are and what God's doing in their context. Check out the show notes for the links to Caleb Lind's ministry at First Baptist Church in Norfolk, so you'll be able to check out their church website, the various ministries going on there. You'll also have that link to his email, so if you have questions about his ministry, you can be sure to ask him that way. Also, there'll be links there for the American Baptist Churches of Nebraska. Subscribe to this podcast at Podbean, iTunes, or Google Play. While there, be sure to rate us or give us a good review so we know how you are enjoying the podcast. And then send us some of your ideas of the types of people you'd like us to interview for future episodes. Feel free to support us by giving through our PayPal link at the American Baptist Churches of Nebraska website. It's simply www.abcnebraska.com. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.